January 1954. Berlin, Germany. The city is cut in half. On one side, American occupation forces control the western sectors. On the other, the Soviet Red Army commands the eastern zone. Between them runs an invisible line that divides the world. This is the Cold War's most dangerous frontier. CIA Director Allen Dulles receives a briefing in Washington. The subject is Soviet military communications in East Berlin. A vast network of telephone cables runs beneath the occupied city. These lines connect Moscow to Soviet headquarters across Eastern Europe. Every phone call, every order, every secret passes through Berlin. The CIA knows this. But East Berlin is one of the most heavily guarded cities on Earth. No American agent can walk those streets without being watched. No listening device can be planted without being discovered. And the Soviets control every building, every street, every inch of ground. Then a CIA officer stationed in West Berlin proposes something unprecedented. His name is William King Harvey. He suggests digging a tunnel underneath the border. A tunnel long enough to reach Soviet communication cables buried in East Berlin. A tunnel invisible from above. Harvey is not new to this kind of work. From 1952, he served as chief of Berlin Operations Base. He had studied a similar British operation in Vienna, Operation Silver, where Western intelligence successfully tapped Soviet lines. But Berlin is different. The scale is larger. The risk is greater. The consequences of failure are catastrophic. Harvey meets with British Secret Intelligence Service officers in London in early 1954. The meetings are held at No. 2 Carlton Gardens. The West German government is excluded due to fears of Soviet infiltration. The British agree to provide technical expertise from Operation Silver. The Americans will supply funding and construction. Together, they will build the tunnel. The operation is given 2 code names. The Americans call it Operation Gold. The British call it Operation Stopwatch. Present at these early planning meetings is an MI6 officer named George Blake. Blake takes detailed minutes of the proceedings. He records the tunnel's location, its target cables, its timeline. No one suspects that Blake is working for the Soviet Union. He was recruited by the KGB during the Korean War. He has been passing secrets to Moscow for years. Blake informs his Soviet handlers immediately. The KGB now knows everything about Operation Gold before construction even begins. William Harvey returns to Washington to brief senior CIA officials. He meets with Director Allen Dulles, Clandestine Services Chief Frank Wiesner, and Deputy Chief Richard Helms. Harvey presents blueprints for the tunnel's construction. The plan is audacious. The tunnel will start in the American sector of West Berlin. It will extend 1,476 feet eastward into Soviet-occupied territory. It will reach underground communication cables near the East German town of Alt-Glienicke. Dulles approves the operation in January 1954. He issues one directive. In the interest of security, as little as possible should be reduced to writing. The CIA follows this order scrupulously. The British do not. Blake's notes remain in MI6 files. The CIA does not inform the National Security Agency about the project. Even within the CIA, only a handful of officers know the full scope. Richard Helms, despite his senior rank, acts as an action officer to keep the circle small. He handles routine operational matters personally. Construction begins in September 1954. The CIA uses a U.S. Air Force radar site in West Berlin as cover. Above ground, workers build a warehouse. Below ground, engineers dig. The tunnel is 6 feet in diameter. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers provides technical expertise. An advanced steel liner system reinforces the tunnel walls. This protects the structure from ground shifts and detection. The work is slow. Every shovelful of dirt must be removed without drawing attention. Every support beam must be installed silently. Above them, Soviet soldiers patrol the border. One mistake will expose everything, but the KGB does not stop the construction. Soviet intelligence faces a dilemma. If they expose the tunnel immediately, the CIA will know someone betrayed the operation. Suspicion will fall on those present at the planning meetings. Blake's cover will be destroyed. The Soviets make a calculated decision. They will allow the tunnel to operate. They will protect their most valuable asset, George Blake. The intelligence he provides from inside MI6 is worth more than the security of a few phone lines. May 1955. British engineers reach the target cables beneath East Berlin. They isolate the Soviet military telephone lines. They install sophisticated tapping equipment. A line runs back through the tunnel to amplifying devices in West Berlin. The tap goes live. Almost immediately, intelligence begins flowing westward. 40,000 hours of phone conversations are recorded. 6 million hours of telegraphic communication are intercepted. Translators work around the clock. More than 1,700 intelligence reports are extracted. Over 400,000 conversations are transcribed. The CIA gains detailed knowledge of Soviet army maneuvers in East Germany, troop movements, supply routes, command structures. The intelligence is considered invaluable. Director Alan Dulles calls it one of the most valuable and daring projects ever undertaken. But what the Americans and British do not know is what the Soviets are allowing them to hear. Soviet leadership understands the tunnel can be used to their advantage. The information flowing through those cables is carefully managed. Some intelligence is genuine, some is misleading. The KGB uses the tunnel to shape Western perceptions of Soviet capabilities and intentions. And it is a deception within a deception. The Americans believe they are listening in secret. The Soviets know they are being heard. For 11 months and 11 days, the operation continues. The tunnel operates 24 hours a day. Recording equipment never stops running. Western intelligence analysts believe they have achieved the impossible. They have penetrated the Iron Curtain without being detected. April 21, 1956. April 22 in Berlin, Soviet engineers announce they are repairing faulty underground cables in East Berlin. They dig near Alt-Glienicke. They accidentally discover the tunnel. Soviet forces immediately secure the site. Photographs are taken. The discovery is publicized. Moscow calls it evidence of American espionage and aggression. Western newspapers report the story. The CIA says nothing. Alan Dulles does not reveal the operation's true scope. He does not acknowledge how much intelligence was gathered. He does not admit the tunnel had been operational for nearly a year. But inside the CIA and MI6, questions begin. How did the Soviets find the tunnel? Was it truly accidental? Or did someone tell them where to look? The timing is suspicious. The discovery appears staged. Soviet engineers dug in exactly the right location, as if they knew precisely where the tunnel was located. The CIA reviews everyone who had knowledge of the operation. The list is small. Security had been tight, yet the possibility of a mole cannot be dismissed. For 5 years, the question remains unanswered. George Blake continues working for MI6. He is posted to Lebanon. He supplies Soviet intelligence with classified information on dozens of operations across Europe. His betrayal is extensive. 1961, a Polish intelligence officer named Michael Goleniewski defects to the United States. He provides information that leads investigators to George Blake. Blake is recalled to London from his posting in Lebanon. He is questioned by MI6 officers. Blake confesses. He admits he was recruited by the KGB during the Korean War. He admits he informed the Soviets about Operation Gold during the planning stages in 1954. He admits he betrayed dozens of Western intelligence operations. The scale of the damage is catastrophic. Blake is tried in camera at the Old Bailey in May 1961. The trial is closed to the public. The evidence against him is overwhelming. Blake pleads guilty. He is sentenced to 42 years in prison. At the time, it is the longest sentence ever handed down by a British court, but Blake's story does not end there. October 22nd, 1966. Saturday evening. Most prisoners and guards at Wormwood Scrubbs Prison in London are watching a weekly movie. Blake waits in his cell. Outside the prison wall, accomplices arrive late due to traffic. They are delayed further by a couple in a parked car at the rendezvous point. Blake begins to think the escape has been called off. Then a ladder suddenly appears over the wall. Blake climbs out. He flees England. He makes his way to East Germany, then to Moscow. He lives in the Soviet Union for the rest of his life. He works for the Institute of World Economic and International Affairs. He never returns to Britain. The revelation of Blake's betrayal transforms the legacy of Operation Gold. Western intelligence agencies realized the tunnel had been compromised from the beginning. The Soviets knew about the operation before the first shovel broke ground. They allowed it to continue for nearly a year to protect Blake. They sacrificed some intelligence rather than their most valuable agent. By allowing the tunnel to operate, the KGB gained 5 additional years of Blake's espionage. During those years, Blake supplied massive amounts of classified information from inside MI6. The intelligence he provided was worth more than the security of the Berlin cables. Yet historians still consider the Berlin Tunnel one of the greatest intelligence successes of the Cold War. The 400,000 conversations transcribed were not entirely fabricated. The Soviets could not control every word spoken on those lines. Genuine intelligence was gathered. Soviet troop movements were tracked. Command structures were mapped. The tunnel's intelligence contributed to Western understanding of Soviet military capabilities. But the question remains, how much of what the CIA heard was real? How much was deception? The KGB shaped the information flowing through those cables. They knew what the West was hearing. They could feed false intelligence. They could exaggerate or minimize Soviet strength. The tunnel was both a triumph and a trap, a monument to engineering and espionage, and to betrayal. In 2012, a section of the original Berlin Tunnel was discovered in a forest 150 kilometers from the German capital. The 450-meter section had been hidden for 56 years. It stands as a physical reminder of the operation, but many questions remain classified. The full extent of George Blake's betrayal is still not publicly known. Some consequences of his espionage remain secret even today. How many agents were compromised because of him? How many operations were exposed? How many lives were lost? The CIA and MI6 have never fully disclosed the damage. And the deeper question persists. Did the KGB use the tunnel to plant disinformation that shaped Western Cold War strategy? Did false intelligence gathered from the Berlin Tunnel influence decisions made in Washington and London? Did the Soviets manipulate Western perceptions of their military strength? The answers are buried in files that remain sealed. The tunnel beneath Berlin has been closed for nearly 70 years, but the secrets it carried and the lies it may have transmitted remain hidden. What the CIA believed was their greatest espionage triumph may have been the KGB's most successful deception. The truth is still underground.